So out of domain models, we be exposed. This is our domain models. So this is our domain models. So you expose the domain models, what we need, and then we define the domain models and relationship among them, and then build your respective REST APIs. So that's one of the questions from the lot of viewers. Those have less experience. That's the beginners and or some little bit experience about the Spring Boot, and then many viewers and many subscribers asking me to give really basic introductions or abstract level information how the Spring Boot annotation works and what type of annotation they need for very basic or very basic implementation of your REST APIs. That's I'm trying to do to clarify with you how which annotation you need, how it works, and how it's important, which level of the annotation, the class level, method level, even the interface level annotation. Those things I try to discuss, just like give it a really initial idea, and then I will start the implementation of the projects. So the component annotation, you see the generic Spring annotation. This is a component repository, service, configuration, and controller are meta annotation for the components. It's service annotation. It auto-detected through the class path scanning, and mainly included all the business logic for your implementation or your interface service implementations. That means you implement your interfaces and implement the services as a service annotations, and it's built automatically that you'll be injecting the bean for your other components or other services, as like other controller like REST API controller. That's I said I will show you when I start the developments, and every how, where, and how you use this the annotation into the into your implementation, into your REST API implementation. It is a combine of your Spring MVC annotations, and for our case at the moment we need just like the focus on the our REST implementation, which part we need and which annotation need. So it's basically focusing the annotation for the REST APIs annotations. So that means the service is specific. The specialization is the specialization of the S components, and this is the very containing the business service annotation containing the business logic, and then services itself. And then you have a repository annotations, and then its behavior to store, patch, and search data come to the repository categories. You see the data access object, actions, and operations, and then based on database layers in application. Repository is a specification of the components. So you have every repository means if you have a domain, you have a default repository like CRUD repository, the one of the example. You have a paging and sorting repository. You have some JPA repository, and then you have some database specific repository as like Cassandra repository, and then today I will show you the MongoDB repository. So every database, some database, not everyone, but some database they have own repositories, repository systems to implement the operations like basic CRUD operation and complex pagination and sorting operation. So you see the controller annotation is basically using the request mappings for the Spring MVC, traditional MVC controller. So it has a model and view objects in technology, model and view controller, model and view controller annotations. So this is the part of those who are using those who try to implement the web application. Normally they define the controller annotations for their controller request and response handling controller. That means it's manage the model and view object and into the controller. For our case, we use the REST controller because we are trying to implement the REST annotation, REST API, and that's why this is the most important annotation. If you define your controller, the REST controller, then all the respective interfaces and methods, and then will be exposed as REST API, and then you can call your REST APIs in the HTTP protocol, HTTP with the different HTTP bars, and then you done your job. That's the means. So if you have some other parameters that we need, the request parameters, to bind a request parameter to the method parameter as a variables. Request response body, that's everybody knows when for your REST endpoint, you have get a request with the parameter, request parameter or path parameters, and then you get the response of your response of your body response body from your objects or your methods or your methods return exposed as a response body. The response could be the XML, could be the JSON, could be the simple text files or other format of the response depending, but by default we expose the JSON format as a REST response object, REST body, or I can say response body object. So the path parameter, you can path parameter is located in the URL levels. You see the and then and look for the specific record from the database, from the your backend server, or look for a specific record from your middle layers or your backend layers. Request mappings, the request message is both has class level and method level. It has specify the request and then handle the send to the request to the controller and response the request. That means the request mapping means it has a get, update, delete, and then other operation patch, and then put, and then so on and so forth. Auto where applied on the field and setting the methods and constructor, inject the object independency implicitly, and post constructor and then value annotation means if you have some properties files in the properties into the your application.properties file or production the application minus production.properties file, you can read the properties where you need it. But by default, when the Spring Boot application started reading the properties from the application.properties file or application.yml file, this is the annotation. If you need really very specific reading to properties file, you can do also this way. So configurations is a class level annotations. Will be a method to install instantiated and configure dependency, normally the bean annotation methods. So we have some bean annotation also. We didn't use it a lot into this project, but the other project maybe you need the bean definition. You just set it's the bean annotation and it works automatically. That's the process. So this is we can this is the master, the parent, the main class and main methods. Annotation is Spring Boot annotation is containing all the annotation that you need, the configuration, auto configurations, and component scan. That means if you annotate your main methods class, and then it's automatic in down level, in the background level, basically it is doing all the configuration, auto configuration, and then component scanning of the things. So see the component application, Spring Boot application configurations, plus the component scanning, and then plus the enable auto configurations. Other important Spring Boot annotation is the request attribute, matrix variables, request header, request path, and the response status, session attributes, and session attributes of the other important annotations. So we got the idea what I mean. How can you start and how can you process the annotations and then use those annotation for different purposes. So now that means we have got idea, we got the requirements, we have the specifications, we defined our models, abstract level information, what type of information we need to model it, and we got the basic idea how the annotations, what type of annotation, which annotation, what are doing what, and how can we use this annotation into your implementations. So what we need to know, we start our developments. So we did the development already. Just I try to give it to you, not the live coding, but I will give it to you the how it's done, how it's implemented, and how it's deployed, how it's installed the all application. You get one by one. Just follow the one by one and take it really clearly. So we try to build the projects. That's that everybody maybe if those did not know where you can build the Spring Boot projects, then I will you can see that this is our projects already implemented, and you can go this here if you see the pictures like here.